A pleasure to meet all at last, and here we are, once again, with HJN Season 5, and of course, Super Foam Flying. If you can't already tell by now, well, believe it or not, this is probably the most recent out of all the Super Foam Flying recordings that I've done so far. I tell you, as far back as maybe late 2021, early 2022, was when I first started doing recording of episodes for Super Foam Flying. But right now, it's October 22nd, 2025. And what I got to talk a bit about today is something that's, of course, a bit more recent. This is probably the only time so far that I intend to do anything related to Nerf's N series. And I can understand some people having high expectations about Nerf and of course their diligence in trying to trash Nerf because of the idea of them creating new series instead of continuing from where they left off with older ones. And I tell you what, it was one thing for them to have blasters come out from this lineup here. They of course called it Elite 2.0, but I've always called it Super. A 2.0 never could truly beat a 1.0. And it does seem that because this so-called 2.0 is in direct turmoil because of the introduction of the N series, which started as far back as May of 2024. So it's been about a year and a half now since they started this. And while there's a good handful of new N series blasters that came around, we have ourselves one of the original that had come out throughout that whole summer of 2024. This is what we call the pinpoint, or I will just simply call it the pointer, because pinpoint does happen to reference a type of dart that has come out in the days of the Ultra line. And well, if you don't believe me, let's have a quick look right here. So you see this guy right here? This is what we call the pinpointer dart. Of course, Nerf had officially been referring to this as the Ultra AccuStrike dart. Kind of a tacky way to try to combine the likes of Ultra and AccuStrike, but at the same time, the idea of more AccuStrike proportions to the darts did allow for some more solid, accurate range. A lot of people did file some complaints on the idea that Ultra darts weren't exactly the most accurate, as some blasters had claimed over the years. And some people did find the rather inaccurate stylings of the likes of the Ultra Dart. So this, in a way, was their solution to it. So I'm more than happy that they were able to not only include some of these darts in their newer blasters. I really kind of miss the Ultra line, you know. They really did something new and something more exciting with the likes of Ultra. They not only made a whole new era worth of high range, much like what they did with the Mega series, but the Ultra series also brought along some unique stylings to them. I especially do like those metallic gold placards that they had with their Ultra logo and their nameplates, pretty much. Just gonna put that back real quick because the main focus that we have, of course, is the likes of the pointer. Now, before I talk a bit about the blaster's performance, we're going to talk a bit about the likes of these darts themselves. These are, of course, the new N series darts, which that alone is a bit of a concern here. It just seems that every year or so, Nerf tries to come up with a new proprietary dart system that seems to work more exclusively tailored to that of their newer blasters out there. It was one thing where they had the N-Strike and the N-Strike Elite series use similar sort of darts with the likes of Streamline darts as well as Elite darts and Suction Cup darts, Whistler darts. They already had a pretty big inventory to work with. Coupled with the fact that they also had things like rockets, missiles, arrows, and even spray foam or slime. Yeah, going into the Super Soaker series with that one. But with the N series darts, it's a bit of a different game on things. So as you can see, it does operate by ways of a priming system very similar to that of certain other blasters I have in my collection. And of course, firing is as simple as pulling the trigger. I will say it does get a pretty unique level of accuracy. And in terms of ranges, I was able to get a good minimum of 65 feet, which doesn't necessarily compete with the likes of N-Strike Elite's range claims of 75 feet, nor does it get anywhere close to the likes of certain missiles or mega and ultra darts. Because I kid you not, there were times in which that I recall where I've had ultra darts even go way beyond my 100-foot-long meter. Yeah. If any of you guys remember my episodes of Nerf Secret Reveal Distance Gauge, you probably know what I'm talking about. In any case though, the N series overall has been pretty good at what it was able to do. I especially like the way that they were able to stylize things out there and have some unique molding as well as decorative pieces. Not to mention some unique shaping of their blasters in many ways. I especially like the unique curvy sort of aspects of the scope. Kind of gives it a parallelogram sort of feature to it. If anybody's familiar with that shape, do be sure to let me know. Of course, the stock is also pretty simplified and non-adjustable, which thankfully it does work with my overall proportions, just as one would normally expect. And of course, we can't forget, a jam door is featured as well. So that way, you can clear out any jams. So far, I've had absolutely none of which is a great thing to have. I do feel like that there's a couple of things they could do to improve this for the most part. They could become a little more modular here. While this magazine that I have right here, which can fit a good 12 darts in it, it does work great on its own, but I feel like that if they could have more things like there, like a flip clip styled set or a drum mag, that would also be pretty nice to have. I also get the feeling that some people out there might not be very touched by the idea of having the release button be set this far away from the trigger finger, so it'd kind of be more sensible to use their middle finger like this. But even then, the grip on this is pretty tight. And I did say that you could fit 12 darts in here, but they of course do recommend you put in 10, as it says so right underneath the mag well here. Still, I don't see that many other issues with this. The pointer is probably at least top 3 best out of all the N series related blasters. So for my overall perspective on this blaster, we'll go ahead and give the pointer a solid 9.0 out of 10.1. Some might think of it as being a bit too generous, some might think of it as being medial here, but really, it's more about the fact that if you got yourself money and you got yourself some time, get a hold of this blaster while you can. A good $15, $20 this can run up to, which alone does measure up in a pretty good way. It's a somewhat large blaster with a few permanent attachments like the scope and the barrel, which does come separate at first, so much like the Centurion and much like a few other blasters with permanent attachments, do take that into account. Otherwise, this concludes my piece for this episode. I'll see you guys next time.